Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into our blog introduction again today. Today is going to feel somewhat like a history lesson in workers' compensation, but it is important not for the historical component, but for you to understand where your rights came from, to know where your rights are now. Back before all states had a mandatory workers' compensation requirement in the 1800s, some states had it, some states didn't, and everybody was all over the place. You could actually sue your employers back then, like a car accident case, and you were able to, if you could prove negligence, that the employer did something wrong, you could get pain and suffering compensation. Then in the early 1900s, it became a mandatory requirement with the Industrial Revolution for everybody that meet the components required and necessary to have, of all states across the board, workers' compensation coverage. It was actually back in the day called a workmen's compensation, and because of the gender neutral problem, they changed it to workers' compensation to include all of our ladies out there. So now it is workers' compensation, and it is a mandatory requirement in the states, but they removed the component of negligence and the ability to sue your employer, and they changed it with it not being a barrier to your claim to collect benefits if you were negligent on the job. It became irrelevant. If it was your fault or if it was not your fault, was not part of your workers' compensation case. So this is where it becomes relevant to you, the injured worker. If you were involved in an accident on the job and it actually was your fault, it is not a barrier to us being able to obtain weekly checks and all of your workers' compensation benefits, even if it was your fault. That's the good news in the state of Georgia and with the no-fault component. So we want to make sure, especially our injured workers that are involved in accidents on the job where it may well indeed be something you did wrong, know that you should still contact an attorney because we can still protect your rights. This comes up sometimes in our trucking accident cases where maybe you contributed to the accident or the accident was something that was your fault and you get fired. Even though you may get fired under the workers' compensation component, you still have a valid workers' compensation.